All right, welcome back to the Team Avatar show, and we are into episode 6. And I will say, I am pleasantly surprised that this got better, given the last couple episodes. But I'm joined by the Logans once again. We're gonna get confusing again with the
As
old Logan
always.
and the new Logan. One day I'll just start calling you guys by your last names on these, and then we'll just go from there. But yeah, so we're back. Hopefully the positive section, at least for me, is going to be a lot longer than it's been in the past couple of videos. So that's nice. But, I guess we'll just hop in. New Logan, we'll start with you. What were the positives or things you enjoyed from episode 6?
Team Avatar wasn't really shown in this episode as much. That's the best one right there.
Yep.
You Zuko's character, I think this was the best episode yet, probably because they actually had characters with actual arc in this one, like Zuko.
I agree.
Everything was just phenomenal. It felt like an actual Avatar episode from the cartoon, especially when Zuko wakes up after the Agni Kai battle, and Iroh's like, the good news is that you're not going to lose your sight, so you can see my beauty. So
Yeah.
that felt like an Iroh
Yes,
thing.
that was a nice part.
Just everything with the Fire Nation once again was spectacular. The Blue Spirit, I thought that was a great shot with it. Everything that's not Team Avatar is doing good in this show. So this was, I want to say, probably the best episode I have seen.
I agree. I think the biggest thing, and this is the weirdest part, because last episode I ended it with, well, actually, you know what? Let me at least say this. I think this episode individually was really good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's good for the actual show, because you took two of our main characters and you completely took them out of the episode. So it's like, for us, the viewers, it's more enjoyable because we don't care about these characters anymore. But it's like these characters, like our main three, have no connection whatsoever to each other. And so you put in an episode where they're also not together at all. It's quite jarring.
Not to cut you off, but like what you're saying is how they don't fit together. It's funny that Zuko and his little army fit much more better. Like you see them all bicker, like how like we don't like Zuko because he doesn't care about us and he's been bashing. And then they find out a character arc like, oh my god, he actually stopped us from going on a suicide mission, and that's why we're following him, is because his father actually was going to have us do a stupid plan in it. So it felt like a better character arc because at the beginning when his commander is like, Zuko has lost nothing, he sacrificed nothing, and then Iroh kind of foreshadows before he actually tells them what actually happened. Like, you do not know what Zuko did for you guys. Perhaps he cares a little too much about you guys. Pretty much showing like the whole backstory. They did Zuko so well. They did him right in this show, in my opinion. Same with Iroh. Even though that at the beginning Iroh was kind of rough, like the first episode, second episode it was kind of rough, but I came around to this Iroh and all that. Like all the people in the Fire Nation are spectacular at their characters. I don't know if the director gave them more free will because they're supposed to be bad guys, so they could pretty much do anything that they want that's taboo. That gives them better like show of character arc. While the heroes, they made them like a D&D straight to the point heroes kind of thing, where they're not neutral first and then slowly give good over time. They're like instantly we got to be good out of the blue.
Or they're heroes that like don't have anything that is conflicting with their beliefs or anything for them to overcome.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the one thing I want to say is Sokka. The reason for his character being the way he how the writers say that he was sexist is because you have to remember the Southern Water Tribe is tribal still. You look at their huts, they're living in igloos and they have a wooden barricade. They're not like the Northern one where they have all these walls built up and all this, like, say, water-bending technology. They're stuck in the primitive era. And during the primitive era, it was like the men were like the actual warriors. So it made sense for him to be that way to the Kyoshi warriors, but they cut that whole point out. And the whole thing about him being like a general or like the leader of his group after his dad left, it just doesn't feel the same because they cut all that out of them being primitive, basically. Because you look at their village compared to the northern one with it. I don't know. It's just
they cut out that journey of the character. Like they had something that's still in there. Like the leader thing is basically the only thing that Saga has in the show.
He doesn't have that.
Yeah, it's
because
just there's nothing to build on it. Like there's no. It's just one of those things where it's like, oh, he has a vision, but that doesn't connect to like any conversations with Katara or Aang.
right,
It's just an isolated scene, which is like, okay, this is a meaningless scene because we get this scene in the last episode that should have done something, but it's like by the time that's maybe even referenced, it's going to be episode 7. Like it's just,
right.
yeah,
And you see in the original cartoon, Sokka, like he was like in the first season, he was smart with his boomerang, talking about angles and how he could throw it, and already talking about strategy. This whole show, all Sokka has been doing is, yeah, my dad was a warlord, and now I'm the chief, well, the protector. And then Suki is like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Then it's like, "Aren't you supposed to protect?" It's like it doesn't feel the same because he just keeps. It's like the my wife is a doctor kind of thing, or my wife's a
mm-hmm.
nurse kind of thing, where it's
Yeah,
like we have not seen him been in charge at all or coming up with strategies. The closest that we have with him was when he was talking to Mechanist about like, oh, the airships. When in the cartoon, it kind of builds up because you see that he has some strategy that is kind of flawed, especially with the jet scene
yes,
in the original
specifically
cartoon where
that
it's
one,
like,
yeah.
yeah, because the whole episode's about him and his hunch, and episodes prior, he's always been semi right about some stuff. So yeah, it was this they could have done better, but so far I am very pleased with the Fire Nation in this
Yeah.
show.
Before we
The
go
Fire
further
Nation,
into the
yeah,
negatives, I'll just like say like there's just more emotional attachment with a lot of the characters in the Fire Nation. Like they're much more fleshed out. They're more entertaining to watch because even minor characters in the Fire Nation plot, they have some relevance to the story. There's some way that they connect to the other parts of the story, which is interesting. Like Logan, you hit on it. Like all the soldiers on Zuko's ship, those characters, like they don't need to develop those, but they took the extra time to like have a nice little like mini arc that doesn't take up a ton of time on screen, but it's something that's very impactful to the end of the episode.
right.
So that's really
Now,
well done.
yeah,
um
my theory is the writer of the show actually has a crush on Zuko or something
Maybe,
as a
or
child.
Iroh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
another plus. Iroh's got his girlfriend in this
That's
whole
true.
episode and
Yep.
all that. So, yep. So, but yeah, they really flushed out the Fire Nation
Yeah.
real well. I think this show is more of a fanfic of Fire Nation in my opinion. Even though
Could
it's
be.
kind of, even though it is taking from the cartoon, like almost verbatim on some stuff. But the way that they have the Fire Nation so fleshed out compared to Team Avatar, it's it's definitely seems more like they wanted more time to develop with the Fire Nation in life version than they really did with the whole Avatar. This person probably fast forward the cartoon in real life as a kid or something, skip through all the entire Aang stuff and just watch Zuko and or something like that
Yeah,
because they thought he was edgy back then or
it was edgy.
whatnot.
All
But
right, well,
that's where I'm just gonna leave it.
I'll let old Logan to take the stage. Any positives you had? I know we went on there for a while, so
Uh,
this is your time.
well, sadly, I think you guys took all of it. New Logan kind of summed it up pretty well. We get to see a lot of the Fire Nation, and they really like writing the Fire Nation people out. The whole 41st Division, and then the I forget what they call them, the Shrine Keepers, the guys at the Roku Shrine.
Oh yeah.
I liked how they did. Like they kept Shu and they kept the other ones. I mean, they weren't as important as Shu. I think that's how you say his name. But it was good. It was cool to see them and then see the actual shrine to Roku.
Yeah.
I was worried they were gonna do something bad with that and take it out or do something weird. But other than that, you guys kind of hit the point. The flashbacks were really cool. The Iroh comedy was actually Iroh comedy, so
Yep.
it
It's
was
very good in this
very
episode.
enjoyable to see that. Yeah,
As
but
Luke would say, since he's gone,
mhm.
it had funnies.
It had funnies, yes. But I mean, I preferred this to episode a lot more than the last 5. So
Yes.
by far the best so far.
So I'll just add on because, I think we've been, like we've talked about already in this episode, our main 3 heroes haven't really been that great acting performance, whether that's what they're being given, whatnot. I will say, I think Zuko being in proximity with Aang, it made Aang, like, it just feels like his acting got a bit better just being with Zuko. I don't know if you guys
Mhm.
had that vibe. I just felt like, it still wasn't perfect, but I feel like
I
the
don't
scenes between the two, like Aang was a bit better Like it
In my
felt
opinion,
better.
yeah, in my opinion with that though, I don't think it was the acting was better. I think it was because it's more to the original story
Okay,
of
yeah, that'd
how
be fair.
after
Yeah.
of how they escaped that prison, how the Blue Spirit uh saved Aang from being captured, and then they kind of how Aang awkwardly tries to uh break the ice basically with Zuko. It was more aligned with the actual cartoon,
Yeah.
and it was more of their true characters. That's why we probably like this episode way more. Now, does this episode excuse the atrocities of the previous episodes?
No,
No.
no, it
This
does
is
not.
like
Never.
one good thing out of the whole episode so far, and that's kind of bad. Out of 8, they
Yeah.
probably got 1/8% correct, like 1 out of 8 on a test score. In my opinion, right now it's 1 out of 8.
Well, to be fair, we haven't gotten to episode 7 and 8, so technically it's 1 out of
1 out of
6.
6.
But
Yeah.
True,
we don't
yeah.
That's
know.
still not
Episode
good
7 and
numbers.
8 could be good. We don't know. But
In-
yeah, I mean, other things I thought I think they handled plots better because they did take like 2 major plots towards the end of the season. I think it's like episode 13 and like closer. It's like 18 or 17 or something like that. And they put them together and they made it feel somewhat natural. There is some things I'll
Right.
talk about in the negatives where I was like, okay, there's some logical stuff where I'm like, but it felt where I'm like, okay, I'll excuse it because I like the way that they combine the plot lines instead of just throwing everything at us. It felt a little bit more natural and all of that. So I thought that was a really good positive. I thought visuals, like I think the escape from prison stuff with Aang, his airbending there was better than at other points in the show has been. So yeah, I think visuals as usual was good. They actually had some really good transitions in this episode as well, going from the flashbacks to real time. One that I wanted to point out is there's a scene where I don't remember if it's like Zuko is walking out of his room or whatever to go to the war council, and then it flashes back into Zuko entering into
like
the
the
ship
first
or
2
whatever.
minutes.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
that
that
was
was a very
really
good
good.
one,
I
yeah.
really enjoyed that. That was just good visuals, good editing as well and stuff. So anything else you guys want to talk on the positives before we get to the negatives?
Right
Um,
now, the show's at a 16.6%, if my math's correct.
Oh God,
One good episode
we
out
do
of 6.
math over here.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but
Okay.
that seems like a failing grade.
Yeah, it's pretty
Yeah.
rough there.
Yep.
Yikes.
Let me just double check my math handwritten real quick.
Well, while you're doing math,
handwritten. Go ahead,
say
buddy.
while you do it by hand, I'm gonna cut in real quick. I do like how they kind of did the plots. I know last episode I was like it was too much and they should toned it down. They should have had it how they had it in this episode. It was only like 2 episode plots kind of mixed in, and it wasn't even completely. You had some of the June stuff, or I guess I should say 3. It was some of the June, the bounty hunter,
Mm-hmm.
and then some of Ko, the spirit with the nasty face.
Yep.
For those who are still unsure. But I liked they were very minimalistic, and it kept to more or less one plot, which was the Blue Spirit plot. So that was kind of
Yeah.
nice to see. I think they handled that much better than they have been in previous episodes, and hopefully they continue to do it like this for the sadly only remaining 2.
Yeah. I mean, as we get in the negatives, I mean, this is just something that this episode being so good frustrates me with even more with episodes in the past, because this episode shows that, oh yeah, they were willing to slow down and do like just 1 or 2, plots and put them in naturally. And then I look at like the whole time we're in Namashu and it's like, we've got the Jet plot line, we've got the Mechanist plot line, we've got the Boomy plot line, and none of it like
Made any
works
sense.
together.
Yeah.
And so you look at this episode and you're like, why didn't we just do what we did here
Why haven't
and
we been
just
getting
do
this?
it in the other episodes? Like, what wasn't episode 3 the Boomy stuff and whatever, and then episode 4 be the Jet stuff, episode 5 be whatever? Like, it just, I don't know, it is very frustrating.
Yeah.
It almost would have been smart if they had taken like episode 3, started with Boomy, and then moved into the Mechanist or Jet
Yeah.
stuff, and then
I agree.
like split that between episode 3 and 4, and then the first half is the like the continuation, and the second half's a new story arc.
I
mean,
agree.
Maybe something like that.
the whole thing with Boomy though is kind of like if they did like the same kind of plot line as the live action did, it's kind of skewered because, in my opinion, if they really wanted to do it with Game of Thrones, Boomy could have been giving Jet's little gain of the Lost Boys, basically, since he had an armada of children for a reason.
Yeah, Peter Pan over here.
Candy Rock, that rock candy,
Mhm.
kind of
Okay.
like in Game of Thrones with the one alchemist guy, the spy person.
Yeah,
How
Kyburn
he,
and Varys.
yeah, how he gave candy out to the children for information. Boomy could have easily
Okay.
done that with infinite resource,
Yeah.
basically.
There's
I
there's
wouldn't
two
have
different
smarted.
things, right? They could have either spread out the plot lines or just changed them to where they made more sense to connect with each other.
Right, because the
Mhm.
original Jet plotline made more sense flooding a Fire Nation
Mm-hmm.
town than killing your own king and no longer having any leads on who's a fire person. That's if anything, that's going to create more chaos within the city
Yep.
in it.
All right,
But
we're getting off
yeah,
topic, but
yeah.
go watch our episode 3 and 4 reviews.
Yeah, pretty much.
But yeah, let's get into the negatives. I'll start with you, old Logan, since you went second on the positives.
All right. I actually really only have one true negative for this episode, and that is it's going to be the interaction between Zuko and Aang.
So
Now,
is it all of them or just like the certain ones?
just when they interact, this is after he's the blue. Zuko becomes the blue spirit and
you
frees
spoiled it.
Aang. They're watching they watched this episode already, but I don't know. It just like the Avatar team, it did not feel natural. Like parts of it were very cheesy and just kind of very cringy to watch. Like when he starts asking about what type of brush he uses, is it goat
Yeah.
fur or rabbit fur? It just did not seem necessary to me.
Now, in my opinion, though, with that, I agree with you with that because I think it has to do with his voice, Aang's voice, because we're used to cartoon Aang and just
Hmm.
how animated cartoon Aang was with it. That made more sense. It's just we never really see Aang be that uh kind of like trying to break the ice with everyone.
Hmm.
It was mostly influenced in the cartoon, and I agree with you being cringe whenever he tries doing that kind of stuff. It just seems like a 5-year-old asking why
Yeah,
because you don't really see Aang do that much in this show
honestly, that's
in the
because of the
cartoon.
writers. They made
Yeah,
him. They said they were trying to make him more serious, more Game of Thronesy. Meanwhile, they have these little kid things that the
right,
cartoon Aang would have asked instead of
right.
this.
So yeah, I agree with you with that.
I'm
Yeah.
very conflicted on that scene because like there's certain lines that I like when Aang says them, like
Hmm.
relating like his past to Zuko's and all that. But then there is that stuff where like you mentioned, I'm like,
Yeah.
looking back on that, that wasn't the best dialogue. I will
Yeah.
say
There-
though, Zuko
mhm.
without saying any lines, his facial acting was pretty good in that entire
Oh,
scene.
amazing! By far my favorite actor in the whole show.
Oh yeah, very
Yeah,
good.
it's funny. Um, Yeah, there's something I wanted to say with the Halo show, how the writers made it with even the actors playing Smash. She said, "Yeah, you need my helmet off so you can see like my emotion." Well, Sokka, he doesn't have a helmet and he's pretty bland, so there's really
Yeah.
no point. I mean, it says a lot if you need facial animation to help with your acting. Like in the
Hmm.
original Halo game, Master Chief without his helmet, he was badass all around. You could see and feel everything but he was saying his moods and all that, but having to rely on like stupid excuses and writers cutting out certain things just to fit their fanfic is stupid.
I mean, I
But
agree. Like, I think saying that you need to see someone's face for like say like Mandalorian or whatever, I think is just lazy writing. Like, there's so
right.
many things you can
Yeah.
do when it comes to the dialogue you're getting being a character, the way you're shooting it, right? How are you shooting it? Are you shooting it like as in you're trying to make whatever character look bigger, like he's the hero, is a heroic thing? Are you trying to make it look like he's more vulnerable? Like that all can be done with just camera work, your sound design, what's going on, and then the dialogue and how they're
Yeah,
interacting with characters.
yeah, going with that is like Darth Vader. He got mad, and even though the line "no" is kind of cringy towards the end of Episode 3 in Revenge Sith,
We're
but
going
you have
all
to
over the
remember.
place.
Yeah, I know. But we're gonna come back to Avatar.
Yeah.
But
Okay,
anyways,
okay.
we're just talking about acting right now. Is why some characters are drabbing, going back to Aang and all that stuff. How it didn't really fit.
Mhm.
But anyways, with Darth Vader, how he shouts "no," he's actually yelling something else, but his voice modular only could translate to "no," and he's like destroying everything around him. So you could visualize him having like
Yep.
tears roll down his eyes and just angry the entire time. And even the other scenes in the original Star
I
Wars
mean,
as well,
Logan,
whenever he
Logan,
finds out.
let me give you a perfect example. Think about when Luke Skywalker is getting electrocuted and you see the
Yeah,
shot with
that's
Darth Vader's face. You can tell the
that
indecision. Like that
yeah, not only
easily right
that,
there.
but episode 5, at the end of it, how Darth Vader is like looking into space, realizing that he has a son still and that he's becoming a Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
How he just stands there staring at space and all that stuff. It's like some things say more than actual pictures and all
Agreed.
that.
Agreed. There's so
Yeah.
many things you can do. There's so many elements of like, you know, making a movie or making a show outside of just, oh yeah, you have to have their face for it to mean something. Like, I think Mando season 1, like it was very popular, and you don't see Mando's face for a good amount of time. So I
See
don't
it,
know.
what, once, maybe twice,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I just yeah. So
Yeah. Back to Aang.
Logan or old Logan, do you have anything else you want to talk about on negatives?
No, I mean, and I will say that the scene I was talking about that I said in my negatives, it wasn't the full scene like you said. There were
Yeah.
parts that were good, like when Aang brings up the notebook. I did like the whole notebook. They added that in to help compress some of the storyline. So I thought that part was good, saying like I appreciate that, that actually helped me. But then there's just those other parts that made it more negative than positive to me. But that's all I had for this episode, really.
All right, new Logan, any negatives you had for the episode?
Katara and Sokka woke up.
Should have died.
Yeah, the fucking trio's back. The Alpha Riding Trio.
Mhm.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad. I mean, if the actors are probably having fun, definitely. I mean, I haven't seen any of their interviews yet about the show and whatnot, but with what they were given, and I think, especially with Sokka and Katara, all of them could have had better development because Katara in the first season, whenever she's trying water bend, she closes her eyes and accidentally throws it behind her and freezes the fire benders that are behind her. Then she has to turn around and do it again because she doesn't know how to do it from front. In this show, she instantly knows how to pretty much do everything. It's nothing new, like the whole jet scene. But yeah, the only negatives is the good guys because
Fair
how
enough.
one-dimensional they are. They're like the shoot. I don't know what it's in D&D, but like where you're like overzealous good, basically.
Or you're like a
Or lawful good.
paladin or
Yeah.
something. So your Kale's character
Yeah,
in our
yeah,
D&D
like a
world.
lawful. Yeah, they're like two lawful good, while Zuko and some of the Fire Nations are like chaotic good, chaotic neutral,
Yeah,
and
they're
all
like
that kind of thing.
anti-heroes more or less.
Yeah, yeah, or
Mhm.
anti-villains
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
yeah.
But
They're just anti.
yeah, right now Zuko I'll say is like an anti-villain. Like he's still on the bad side right now, but he's not as bad as his father, basically.
Agreed.
And then yeah,
Yeah.
so right now the anti-villains that are going to become anti-heroes later to heroes, I think, are pretty good in the writing.
Fair enough. All right. So
Yep.
my negatives, I don't have that many, but some of the ones that I do have, I did think there was like a lot of teleporting around in this episode, and that just goes with, okay, had a lot of plots going on, so I'm willing to kind of like look past it. But there was things where it's like, okay, Zuko and Iroh show up, and then you have General Zhao finding them like instantly. It just seemed like there was a lot of teleporting around, and like it wasn't like shown how they got here or anything like that. Like, how does the hunter, it seems like, instantly contacts Zuko? There just seemed like there was a lot of like movement from our characters that kind of just seemed like out of nowhere almost. So that's one negative I had. The other negative I had was the whole wrapping up of kind of the plot of episode 5. It's like, oh yeah, Aang just gets back, everybody wakes up, and then we have this really, it's supposed to be this emotional shot of the village and all these people coming back, and I'm like, I don't care about this village. Like,
Yeah.
we've got maybe
About
1
Zuko.
minute of screen time with this entire village. Like, I don't even, like, all these people just started like coming out of this dream state. I'm like, dude, this wasn't even developed. I didn't even know these people were like, I knew they were in there because of the original, but like the live action is just like, kid got lost in the forest. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, you guys have anything else you want to say negatively about the episode? I'm trying to think if I had anything else, but
Katara wake up.
You already said that one.
That's how bad it is.
That's
Two of them I
fair.
had to see twice.
I will say it was kind of sad. They have the I forget the name of them, the archers.
Oh
They
yeah.
talk about them and they make a semi big deal about them, only for them to shoot their arrows twice. and both times were never fatal shots. Like, one was just like an Iroh joke, which I
Hey,
was
hey,
okay with
hey!
that one.
That was a fatal shot to aggro. All right.
I will say,
I mean, it murdered his hairdo, so that
about
kinda
that,
sucked.
it kind of just felt like just a wink to the people that watched the original, because it's
Yeah, and
like in the
I'm
first
sure that's
scene
what
they
it
aren't,
is.
if the first scene is not, they're not even needed. It's like, it's just one of those things where it's like, we're here, we can do things, even though Zuko and Iroh are already outnumbered and completely surrounded. It's just like, it's
Yeah,
another thing.
just a little extra.
And it's
No,
like
and
the other scene, it's like, it's nice that you have a nice, archer, but at the same time you also could have just done a fireball and done the same thing. But
well,
Right.
yeah, well, with the blue spirit, that was part of the episode, the
yeah,
original
yeah, yeah,
episode,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
like that. I could have done without the forest part where there's already 30 Fire Nation soldiers on them. There was no need for the archers. I
Yeah,
don't know. I just
agreed.
wish we could have seen like a little bit more of them because in the show we see them training, we see how accurate they are. In this, I think we see it like
Well,
for a split second. I
I
don't know.
mean,
I don't
I
remember
guess
even.
there was a semi need, even though they have 30 firebenders, is because you have to remember Iroh is the dragon of the west.
He's not going to attack his own guys though.
You don't know.
And also, I'm just saying, if you're getting a fireball from like every side, I mean, you
You
can
can
only
only do
be
so
so
much.
talented. Like,
Yeah.
you only have so much power.
You can only face one direction. If you're surrounded, they face every direction.
But yeah, I mean, okay, the last negative, I talked about it in this episode already, but it's kind of one of those where it's like it's a negative, but it's a positive, because like we talked about Sokka and Katara not being in this episode, which is like, it's
That's a positive.
good, it's good because when they're on screen, usually the scenes aren't very good. But at the
And they
same
weren't.
time, it's like going forward on the longevity of this series, we have 2 episodes left, and they're planning on doing like a season 2, a season 3 thing, whatever they're planning on doing after this. And you only have 8 episodes. Every episode is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
Like Percy Jackson, right? Me and Logan did that series.
Yep.
Annabeth and Percy didn't really feel like they had any type of connection until like episode 3 or 4, and then Grover didn't have any because they wasted time in those episodes. This is one of those things where I'm like, if those characters were more believable, I would have been okay with just having an Aang episode. But it's like, because there's no development for any of these characters, it just feels like we're wasting more time and not connecting any of those characters together, because they are the most important characters to be good. Like, it's like, yes, it's nice that Zuko and Iroh are good. They're very vital, parts of the story as well. But you can't have your main 3 protagonists all stink. Like, they can't
Yeah.
all be
Yeah.
bad. There's no, like, people will just stop watching. Because once,
Yeah, I
you can
don't.
only go so far with Zuko and Iroh before you just like, okay, well, you know.
Yeah, I don't get the point of the show trying to rush out all 8 episodes and condensing them.
Yeah, I don't
Like,
get it.
you'll think if you want a live adaptation, right? You'll do like a test run, right? You do the pilot episode. There's something called a pilot episode. I don't know if people forgot about those.
I'm gonna make a
But
connection to this when you're done, so keep going.
yeah. So, do a pilot episode, keep it true to like the actual thing, and then you could gauge how successful it was from it. Like, do we do good or bad? That's probably why Game of Thrones was so well, is because it was. I haven't read the books. Eric, you could fill me in on this.
I'm gonna talk about that when you're done.
Yeah,
So
in like the first episode, let's say the Game of Thrones were kind of true to the source, or at least damn near close to where that was a great adaptation.
Mm-hmm.
Then, like the viewer audience, you'll get your money back on top of more possibly. But then, if you pull out 5 shows, since we only seen 6, and 5 of them have been shit, and all 5 of them have been shit, and let's say the last 3 are good, what's the point in watching the next season?
yep,
Then, if it's going to be the rerun of shit, then one good, basically.
agreed.
If they just did it slowly, where it's like, let's not have entire book 1. Let's have book 1 part 1, right? So let's have like half a season 1 of the cartoon in the show. Let's keep it true to source material. Let's spend all of our budget on that and see how it does. Right now, it just seems like a lazy game developers where it's like, oh, yeah, here's a $60 game, and in 2 months from now, we're going to release a DLC that's actually going to patch all your shit for $80. Everything has gotten lazy. I don't know what it is, but after the Xbox One, after this generation of games consoles came out, everything has gotten lazier with writing and patching bugs. Like, you play old PlayStation 2 games, GameCube, classic Xbox games, you'll see some bugs, but everything had been perfect on release, because once that disc goes out, there's no one to re-edit it. And I don't get why people have such a hard time with that now, with the more advanced technology there is nowadays with it.
This
So
is
it's like,
why, Logan, this
yeah,
is why. Greed. That is
yeah,
exactly what, there's a lack of creativity, and sometimes there is creativity, but because a lot of these big, movie industries, or you're doing, a TV show, Netflix, for instance, they want this product to be out in the basic, simplest form so that they can make money.
mhm,
Okay?
yeah. That's
So
why I give
let
props
me
to Dune.
yeah. Dune is a very good example of, taking your time and doing it correctly, right? There was a delay, I believe, for Dune 2, and guess what? They took the time and they made
Really
it
beautiful.
really
It was
good.
worth it.
So, again, I'm going to connect this. So, Game of Thrones, because you mentioned Game of Thrones, originally it had a pilot episode that was not good. HBO looked at it and they said, no, we're not doing this. This is not good. And they started recasting, right? So Daenerys got recast. A bunch of major leads got recast. And then they did it. And then, so season 1 was not the original, what it was supposed to be, right? That's exactly what you just talked about. You have a pilot episode. Maybe you look, the producers of the episode look at it, see what it is. If you like it, okay, maybe you keep doing it. You don't like it, you either try it again or just don't do it at all. But because people are greedy and they don't want to waste money on trying to make the best product possible, they just do the basic thing. Think about all these different things. Percy Jackson, 8 episodes. What hurt it? Well, the characters didn't have enough time to develop. Things were rushed. This show is almost the same thing, except slightly different. It's like we're condensing a bunch of plot lines. We're not giving enough time for characters to develop, or we're having sloppy writing. Like it's the same thing over and over and over again. And yeah, I don't know. It's just like one of my favorite game series. Like, because you were talking about games, we'll connect that there too. Dragon Age, the first one, had a longer development time and was able to be creatively made as best as possible. Well, maybe not as best as possible, because it still didn't have all the funds to do everything they wanted, but it was better product than Dragon Age 2, because Dragon Age 2 was rushed out. So yeah, it's just, we're in a like phase right now of media where we're rushing product out because we want money and we're greedy.
Yeah, like my opinion, my favorite show it was Vikings, and I thought the way that whole series ended, not the Valhalla stuff, the original one that's now on Hulu, and I thought that show was good because they took their time with each episode, and they even had the courage, unlike this Avatar show, to release like season 4 part 1 and then season 4 part 2 next year to help get writing better. I don't get why everyone is in a rush to hurry up and get,
Yep.
all right, let's get the entire book 1 water out in 1 week. Basically, it's like, why? Slow down. You want to have your viewers to keep coming back to something. And if you just hand out, like, all right, so in a grim world, you're a drug dealer, right? So you want to get the buyer hooked. So you give him like a little bit at a time of real good stuff. But if you just give him a whole bunch of stuff that's not even good, where it's not even an
Yep.
enjoyable experience, it's like, why would I come back to you then?
It's
If
quantity over quality. Yeah.
right, it's like and especially if you're going to get like a big money return in back, why not just slow down and take the time and let people enjoy the journey, the experience of the live action version of it? Because if they mess up season 3's huge scene, I'm gonna be so mad with
Yeah.
that.
I mean,
Because like,
just like think about so many different shows like that are just coming out right now. Where it's like Rings of Power, you can tell was obviously rushed, and it was like they put a bunch of money into it. And again, I want to point this out. This isn't to say we're saying that everybody behind these shows is not good, they're not creative, all these things. I'm usually, when I mean that, I mean it's usually the people that are making the higher up decisions, saying, okay,
right.
this needs to be out by this point. We don't want this in the show. For instance, Sokka not having a character arc at the beginning. That is exactly because executive producers probably said, or people in charge of Netflix said, we don't want this in the show because we want to sell toys of Sokka, and we don't want him to be identified as like sexist or something.
Right. And it's funny because how quickly the show tried pumping out every episode, even though they gave us one. How like South Park makes their episodes in a week, and that has better story writing, character arc, and development than this show has in 5 episodes. I'm not including 6, because 6 was damn near like the actual cartoon, and they're like, "Oh shit, our stuff is actually kind of crap." So you know what? You know what the whole Agni Kai thing is? It's the writers versus the actual actors. So I was like, "Hey, can we have the source material?" And then the guy's like, "No," and gives them like the Zuko scar on the actors and all that. That's why they did Sokka. Probably they put like a chastity belt on him or something like
Oh god.
yeah, like he's
Yeah.
the one with the actual Zuko scar in real life now.
Yeah, yeah.
And like the whole trio, I bet you they all face like the writers and the whole community or whatever that
Mhm.
is rushing the shit. They all did the acting kind. They all just got whipped. So that's why they're so bland.
Yeah.
I do find it funny because I feel like any like information that I see about Avatar, it's always from people like actors that played Fire Nation people, and they're like trying to defend the show, and I'm like,
Dude,
yes,
your
from
line
the
is good.
yeah, from the
Yeah.
Fire Nation point of view, we're not talking about why like you are what holds this show up. Like
You
if it
got
was
the
not
good
for
part.
you, the show would be over. Like nobody would be
Yeah.
like this is the thing though. This is what I would be really curious to like look at. If you're not somebody that's a hardcore fan of Avatar, or you're not somebody like us, right? We're doing a review, so we have to watch the episodes.
Mhm.
Would you even have made it to episode 6? Like, would you
Oh,
have kept
dude,
watching? That's
no,
what I'd be interested in.
yeah.
Honestly, no. And I really wish I could go over to Warrior Guy's house and watch it. So that's one less TV screen showing that there's another viewer. But
Like,
Yeah.
so instead of like us three watching on different TVs, that's showing three different ratings right there. Well, if all of us just watching at one house, like we're going to do with the
Fallout.
Fallout
Fallout.
show, yeah, with the Fallout show is watching on one TV. That's one less, like say, percent of a viewer tuning in to that channel.
Mhm.
Like,
So
I would love to see what their retention rating is. Like, I don't know if they'll actually tell that for Avatar, because like not Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power, like they did, and it was like historically bad, one of the worst of all time. I would love to see like how many people actually complete the first season, because that tells you a lot about what your audience is going to be for the second season, which is why I'm shocked Rings of Power is even doing a second season.
Are
But
they really?
yeah, they're doing a second
Wow.
season, and
Okay.
it's set to come out I think this year at some points.
yeah,
All
it's
right, let's wrap
definitely
it up.
unique.
We're going off the rails at this point. But let's just do reviews. Old Logan, what is your, or not reviews, rating? What is your rating for episode 6?
I'll have to put it probably around a 7 just because of how close the source material it
Oh
was.
man, that's a lower rating than I thought. All right.
I mean, I'm sorry, but after those first 5,
That's fair.
yeah, I'm not gonna put it so high.
Okay. New Logan?
I'll have to give it an 8. It was originally gonna be a 10, then I remembered Sokka and Katara woke up, so I was a -2 because we're gonna be going on that whole story again. And yeah, it's not so like the whole Team Avatar is not the. I'd rather be on Zuko's fun boat,
Zuko's
because he's
fun
got a
boat.
boat. Yeah, yeah, it's a
A
fun
music
boat.
night, man. I'd rather be there for that.
I would
Well, especially when with
Ooh.
Iroh's trumpet thing.
I don't know about
Yeah.
this. Like this episode, I feel very conflicted on, because it's like, yes, part of it is like the episode before it didn't do it any favors, and it had to like resolve that plot line, which it did fine. But
Mhm.
I still think it was a pretty good episode for the most part. I'd probably give it like a 8.5.
Yeah.
I'll stay on it. I'll stay on an 8.5. I thought it was a pretty good. I think it was very comparable to how I felt about the first episode.
Yeah, the writers, you know how the original Avatar writers said, "Fuck this, we're leaving this fucking crap." They probably left them this script for a backup, and the writers of this current show probably just threw it in and like, all right, let's see if this shit is actually good. Puts in, and it turns out to be one of the better episodes out of the first 5 that we watched in it. I mean, you're on my if this was like my test right now, 1 out of 6, you're at a 16.6% in my class.
That's not
With
good.
that, I give you 2 Zuko scars.
It's very comparable to like George Lucas leaving them like, oh yeah, this is what the plans you could do for the sequels, and then they took maybe some of it and was like, okay, all the rest of this is shit, throw it away.
A little, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
like
boy.
this is Squidward when he finds out that he likes Krabby Patty. He's like, oh my god, this shit is actually good. Then he's gonna explode with it, and then you'll explode.
All right, well, thank you guys for watching our review for episode 6. We were all over the place, all over different
All over,
mediums
yeah.
and whatever random shit, but this was a good episode, so there's that. The next episode, we're going back to Team Avatar. So it's probably going to be a dip in quality again.
It's gonna be something. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Luke was not with us for probably the best episode of the series.
Yeah,
So
that is a
he's
little
going
rough
to be
on
back
his
to
part.
being negative again. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.